I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
Trying to reconcile how Benghazi was not safe enough for the Federal Bureau of Investigation to go, but it was safe enough to leave a below-spec facility for our diplomats to stay in.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. This is called The Aftermath, or otherwise known as all the shite that I couldn't fit into Tuesday.
I opted for convenience to use my personal email account, which was allowed by the State Department, because I thought it would be easier.
So, ladies and gentlemen, belly up to the bar. I'm going to step all over Hillary Clinton. We've kept your seat. It's great to see you back. Today, Tashay is your bartendress, and she pours with the best of them, and the smoking lamp is lighted. We don't water our drinks here, just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred.
I can report to the American people and to the world. The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's just start, shall we? Because there's a whole lot of stuff that I absolutely couldn't fit from the last show, and this is sort of the overflow for that, if you will. It's Thursday. This is my first 1 hour show. I've been asked to do 2 hours, but it depends on, well, a number of things. Number one would be the cat that I have in the studio. As I walked in here this evening, I opened the door, and this orange and black kind of unit walked around and was immediately rubbing up against my legs. And I wondered, who the hell let a cat in here? So, of course, I left the door open because it was nice and cool out there, and it was too damn hot in the studio, trying to see if the cat is going to go outside. No, the cat is not going to go outside. So all I can hope is whoever has this cat, somewhere around here, there's you-know-what. A little kitty box. My fingers are crossed for that. Can you imagine, folks, all of the stuff that's happening? You know, just the riots, for example. All I can say because of this is burn, Berkeley, burn. Now, I didn't go to Berkeley, but I did live in San Francisco for a while because I wanted to work for SFPD. Boy, that was a stupid thought. But anyway, in order at the time to be working for SFPD, you had to actually work and live. You had to live within the city limits. So I got to know San Francisco fairly well, and I got to know SFPD fairly well because I went on a couple of ride-alongs with them. I'm extremely disappointed in SFPD. I'll tell you why in just a minute or so. And I'm extremely disappointed in the UC police system. I'm extremely disappointed in the City of Berkeley Police Department. By the way, you should know that during the show last night on Sackheads, Sean was sending Twitter messages out to the UCPD system and out to the City of Berkeley Police Department asking them to explain just what it was that was happening and why they had essentially no response. Because if you look, by the way, that's another thing. I spent a good portion of today looking at videos about the riots. And yes, I did find some videos and I did find some still photographs which showed some police officers in riot gear, and they were standing around. So then I spent the rest of the day, after looking at videos, trying to determine if anyone had written anything about the number of persons who were arrested. Because initially, we knew that there were at least, 300, 400, 500 people involved in the fracas there. Now, the numbers indicate that roughly 150 people or so came from other actual anarchist groups and probably came from off campus. So I thought, with that number of people involved and that great an amount of violence and Starbucks, what the hell is up with Starbucks? I thought that leftists and anarchists loved Starbucks. They did, after all, recently say that they were going to, when the refugees swarm in, they might not be so swarming, but when they swarm in, Starbucks is going to give 10,000 jobs to refugees. They said that, 10,000 jobs to refugees. Well, homeless veterans can evidently go to hell, but they're going to employ 10,000 refugees. Wonderful. And then whenever you see anarchists come into a city, Portland, Seattle, in this case last night, Berkeley, the first thing they do is go up to a Starbucks and break the windows and burn it down. What the hell is up with that? Oh, wait. Could it be because some of these arseholes think that they're corporatists? My guess would be yes. So, anyway, let's get back to the number of arrests, because I'm sure you all saw the videos. And you went and you saw the photographs. You probably read a lot of the stories. Tell me, in chat, or scream it out at the top of your lungs, a number. How many people were arrested? Would you guess? At first guess, I'd say a little 100. No. All right, BZ, not 100. There were a lot of cops out there, and the county of Alameda is the jail in which these people would be booked. All right, so if not 100, how many? 50. 50. That seems like a good number, because that means that the UC police are working. They're working for the students, and they're working for the citizens in the area, and the City of Berkeley Police Department, they're working as well. All right, maybe not 50. Okay, let's say that they were a little bit lax, and they made 20 arrests. Well, I didn't find 20 arrests. Okay, well, how about 15? 15 arrests. That's not bad. That at least shows that you're doing your damn job. Okay, 10. All right, 10. Give me 10 arrests. Tell me that 10 people, 10 of these shitheads, were actually arrested. 5. Give me 5. 4. 3. 2. Dave says 0. Dave, you're wrong. 1 person was arrested. And how do I know this? Because this is a statistic you won't find in the news. Unless they just came out with a story recently that and it escaped me completely, because I searched. I found either conspicuous absence in terms of the number of persons arrested, or I didn't even find the statistic at all. And yes, everyone in chat room right now, I hope everybody's in chat. Yes, did you watch the videos? There were people assaulted, there were people unconscious, and they were kicking unconscious people. And on video, there was a woman, a young woman, wearing a red Trump hat, and all of a sudden in front of the camera, she gets maced with spray. That's the wonderful people that attend these lovely shindigs. So, how did I find out that 1 person was actually arrested? Your answer, by the way, everyone, is yes, they can review the videos. That's if they have that intent. So the question is, 1 arrest, how did I find out? I didn't find out in the media. The media made no mention of it whatsoever. So I did what a good little investigator does. I called the jail. And after getting hung up on one time, put on hold another occasion, I got transferred to another individual, and finally, after being shuttled around, I finally talked to an individual, a female, who was very busy, and I finally asked her, I said, look, I've moved from here to here to here. Does anybody know how many persons were arrested and actually got booked through your jail? As far as anyone knows, due to a direct association with the riots that occurred on the Berkeley campus, 1. That's official. 1 person got arrested. So leftists thought that it's a wonderful idea to go burn a nice portion of the People's Republic of UZ Berkeley in Fornicalia because they disagree with the appearance of, and if you've never heard or seen Milo, get prepared for a shock. He is a gay, British, Greek guy. He calls himself a cultural libertarian and a free speech fundamentalist. And you know, I support everything that he says in terms of his speech. I may not agree with it, but I support his ability to say it. His name is Milo Yiannopoulos. He's a senior editor at Breitbart News, which is one of the first things that really cranks people off, that he's associated with Breitbart. And they can't believe that he's a conservative, gay individual, and that just grates in their craw. He is absolutely an unabashed critic of political correctness. He hates social justice warriors and what he calls third wave feminism. So if you've never heard Milo, if you have little children that you're listening to right now, I suggest you close their ears, clap a set of headphones over their heads, or kick them out the room. Because this is what Milo sounds like. On the other hand, don't argue with him. The dude thinks on his feet.
I've taken some time out of my busy schedule, being fabulous and doing my hair, to prepare a speech for you. Well, a few remarks, really. Feminism is cancer. Thank you very much.
That universities have started to go along with it. They have started to respect students' points of view when the students claim that they have been emotionally traumatized by different opinions. And the trigger warning in safe space culture has started to take root even in the best institutions in the country. My view on this is that anybody who asks for a safe space or a trigger warning should be immediately expelled. They have demonstrated... They have demonstrated that they are incapable of meeting the requirements of their course. Why are you here? Why are you here if not to discover new ways of looking at the world, to discover thinkers and ideas, history, stuff you never imagined that was possible, to broaden your intellectual horizons? If you're not prepared to do that, go home, leave. Don't be here.
For the same reasons. The problem is that what most people don't realise, the gender pay gap is a sort of myth. No economist takes it seriously. The ONS figures come from broad church sort of averages across the workforce, and when you take into account the different choices women make, whether or not you include children in that, actually the pay gap narrows to zero. So I'm in favour of this only because it's going to really embarrass these campaigners who constantly tell women that they're victims and that they're suffering under this sort of patriarchal society. Actually, women and men get paid pretty much the same to the point of a couple of percent. So I am in favour of it, but only because it's going to explode one of the most persistent feminist myths of our time, the gender pay gap.
We can agree on some basics, on the basics of classical liberalism, on the basis on which our society is founded, that we should judge people on the contents of their character, that we should interrogate arguments, not skin colour. And I think we should also be able to agree, I think we should also try at least to agree, that the way to achieve equality is not to lie about rape, as feminists do. The way to achieve equality is not to lie about how people are remunerated, as feminists do. Like any other set of ideas, Islam is a set of ideas, and like any other set of ideas, we are perfectly entitled to interrogate it and find it wanting. I personally find it wanting. I would also like to say, as a gay person, I am fucking terrified by mass Muslim immigration, because the homophobia in the Islamic community, in the Ummah, is not restricted to terrorists. It is not restricted to ISIS. 51% of British Muslims believe that gay sex should be against the law. This is not Muslims in Syria. This is not Muslims in Raqqa. This is Muslims who live 3 streets away from me. Every other one of them believes that my lifestyle should be illegal. 39% of British Muslims believe that a woman should always obey her husband. Where the fuck are feminists on that? 25%... 25% of British Muslims believe that Sharia law should be instituted, which under certain circumstances treats a woman's...
Milo, he's trying to narrow in on a question.
Well, I'm going to finish. Treats a woman's testimony as worth half of a man's. The Queers for Palestine, possibly the stupidest people to walk the face of the earth, overlook the statistic that 97% of Palestinians believe that homosexuality is an unacceptable lifestyle choice. I'm not scared by terrorists, I'm scared by Islam.
Well, you hear this a lot from scientists. You hear it a lot, in particular, from female scientists. But the fact is that there is some reason to suppose that there is an advantage to being a man in certain subjects. There's reason to suppose that gender essentialism, biological determinism, whatever you want to call it, the fact that there are male brains and female brains, may indeed have some basis in science. Now, this is sort of thrown out of the window completely by feminists and female academics who just refuse to accept that there's any reason whatsoever why there might be a gender imbalance. Two things on that. One, actually the science is very much still out on that. And two, if you look at equality in society, if you look, for example, at Bangladesh versus Norway, what you notice is the number of women in science and technology subjects actually goes down as societies get more equal, because women simply don't make the same choices that female academics and feminists would like them to. Women actually don't want to go into the sciences on the whole, and when they have every option available to them, they tend to choose not to.
Right. These figures...
You must understand.
These figures are... You're going to excuse me mansplaining, aren't you?
No,
these figures come from averages across society. They don't take into account the different life choices that women make. The reality is that women do prefer a more balanced life. When they go to work, even if they don't have babies, they take longer holidays. They tend to take more holidays. And the reason that they are paid more, up to about 30, 35, 39, depending on whose figures you believe. The reason that flips
only
at the
between
end,
30 and 39.
No, that's actually not true. The reason that the figures flip after that age is because women make different life choices.
Right.
And if you take those life choices into account, no serious economist believes this stuff. It's repeated by politicians right up to President Obama, but no serious economist takes the wage gap seriously.
A particular brand of feminism.
Okay, stop just for a moment. He's talking. As he's talking, I wish you guys could see the video because it's absolutely incredible. As he's talking, he's speaking in front of various women, various men, and Muslims. As he's saying that, the looks on the gazichts of the people that are listening to him speak, the looks are priceless.
Which holds almost total sway in the media and in gender studies and women's studies departments. There are honourable exceptions. But by and large, I don't expect you to comment on any of your colleagues, but a lot of your colleagues are off-the-wall mental. We're in a situation now where students can go to university, they come out dumber than when they went in. They are infantilized by safe space and trigger warning culture.
Absolutely infantilized by trigger warning culture. Thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself. Now are you beginning to see and understand, ladies and gentlemen, why they can't have Milo on a stage? Because he stands up to them and he tells them that their little groomed philosophies are bullshit.
Idea that interrogating a new idea, coming into contact with a school of thought or a person that doesn't conform to your prejudices is somehow problematic, that it gives rise to trauma. This evening, there is a safe space at Michigan University to protect the safety and emotional well-being of students from this dangerous faggot and a lesbian with the wrong opinions. That is insane.
I'm sorry to be rude. I'm sorry to be rude, but, get a lot of platitudes and then a lot of contradictions from my right, because you say, well, we should have investigated diplomatic solutions, and yet you admit that the rebels haven't come to the table. I wonder
I disagree with you.
How do you what is your strategy for negotiating with a brick wall? Because it's quite difficult to negotiate when there's only one party.
I disagree with you. If a process hasn't worked, it doesn't mean that you don't keep going. I think what was really
significant today. Do you agree or do you disagree
today,
that the rebels have refused to even contemplate? And in any case,
so
who would you approach, by the way? Because this is not an organisation with a figurehead. This is a coalition. Exactly. Who exactly are you going to negotiate with?
So that is why you need
right now nobody even knows who to talk to.
I don't agree that bigoted speech is always a bad thing. I think it's important to hear from them. I think it's I think it's important to hear from them. You see, what the left wants to do is it wants to enable its extremists on its own side, the sexists and misandrists of the feminism, the black supremacists of Black Lives Matter. They want to enable the extremists on their own side and silence the extremists on the other. Well,
that's exactly true. The First Amendment does not stand for pablum speech. It exists for challenging speech. That's why the first exists, and the second exists to buttress the first.
I don't like the extremists on either side. Racists, I don't like them, and they don't like me. I'm a miscegenatory, gay Jew. They don't like me at all. But what I want to do is give a platform to all speech. I want more speech of all kinds. Why?
Is subjected to abuse that is saddening them and that is affecting them quite deeply. What advice would you give?
Toughen up. Toughen up. The majority of what's called abuse, harassment and trolling is ridicule. Sometimes it's strong ridicule. It's criticism. Sometimes it's strong criticism. But that's what the internet's for. And, we're going to miss out on some really important, essential conversations if we don't allow people to communicate in the way that they want to.
No longer fit for purpose. The Democrat Party is a mess. The Republican Party deserves to be destroyed. It is no longer fit for purpose. It disrespects and betrays its own base. It no longer practices conservative principles in government.
Listen, is this guy a gay Jew? British guy, is he not saying everything that all of these little snowflakes need to hear? And again, I say, now you're starting to understand the anarchy and the riots and the fire.
It deserves to be ripped in two. If we believe in a conservative vision of the world, the Republican Party is not going to get us there.
Well, it's extraordinary, isn't it, to hear about the fact that there's apparently a problem with women worrying about being too thin. That's, of course, not the problem. The problem is that everyone's getting too fat. And actually, there's no evidence, really, that any of this stuff has much of an impact. A lot of the science is very fuzzy on this. It's social science stuff rather than any real sort of reports or anything. I mean, what worries me about all of this kind of stuff is the implication that somehow we're going to make people's lives happier or better by encouraging them to believe that whatever body shape they are and whatever they look like, they're beautiful and they're going to be happy. That's evident. That's quite clearly not the case. I mean, if you look at women's happiness has been going down since the Second World War. Actually, every decade, women are getting more miserable as they get told that they can be who they want and look how they like. And you can say, I suppose, that a woman's self-esteem should have nothing to do with whether or not a man's sexual preference, sort of coincides with how she looks. But the fact is, women are getting more unhappy. And this sort of slightly irresponsible trend to sort of encourage people to eat whatever they want and do whatever they want is is one of the things that's fueling an obesity crisis. And that's a really serious thing. That's a real thing. That's something that's got health implications. It's got cost implications for the NHS. The problem isn't too many anorexic women. The problem is quite in the opposite direction. We're perfectly happy to have aspirational role models in our entertainment. We should have them too in our retail. There's nothing wrong with encouraging people to live healthily.
It comes down to an issue of personal responsibility. No cloud service is ever going to be completely secure. Apple does have a responsibility to make its software as secure as possible, but there will always be hackers who are much smarter and much cleverer and are much more determined to exploit vulnerabilities.
By the way, just in case you didn't know, Milo's forte is computer hacking and computer technology.
What this boils down to, for celebrities just like everybody else, is personal responsibility. And if you're going to take pictures of yourself like that, by far the most intelligent thing to do is do it with a Polaroid. Don't do it on a device that's connected to the internet, that's sending your pictures to servers you don't control. It's a recipe for madness. And for somebody who is as rich and as famous as Jennifer Lawrence is, it's sort of unbelievable.
Because they're higher in the victim pyramid than we are. The silence of feminism, and indeed the immediate victim blaming of young German girls after the sexual assaults in Cologne, and loads of others as well. There was a transgender couple that were beaten up after some Syrians found out they weren't really women.
By the way, were you guys aware of the fact that in Germany, when some of the German citizens complained that they were raped by Muslims, they were belittled? How despicable is that?
Women all over Germany being abused. 1,400 girls gang raped in Rotherham in the UK because the progressive authorities were scared of appearing racist and didn't police it properly. And that's not,
feverish tabloid right-wing media. That's a government report that said it. This stuff is horrifying. Importing cultures which genuinely represent patriarchy, which embody all of the things that third-wave feminists say they hate, and importing these people en masse into our communities in Europe has been an unmitigated disaster.
Not only that people under 16, 15 don't like them very much, but they're also getting, for the first time, BuzzFeed is starting to get as many dislikes as likes on its videos, because people are realizing there are no social consequences attached to saying, do you know what, this race baiting is not okay, this gender baiting is not okay. What I'm discovering as I talk to colleges, actually, is that the millennial generation, which many of us have written off as a generation that cares more about feelings than facts, has been very unfairly represented by a small vocal minority. Now, that minority has power on campuses, has power in the media, has power in the entertainment industry, has power in academia, all sorts of different environments. But I have faith that the millennial generation is more sensible than that. And I think the proof in the pudding, which hasn't really been seen before, is my college talks. You get my college talks, right? I go and I speak to people about free speech and all the rest of it. You see this, the internet is played out in real life in the audiences in my talks. You get Trump supporters, Black Lives Matter, feminists, classical liberals, all these people, and then you've got like Trump chants versus the Black Lives Matter. It's an amazing thing.
Now you understand why he goes to colleges and why colleges either accept him and let him speak for a time and then they attempt to get rid of him, or just like Berkeley and just like 2 weeks ago, not far from me in the People's Republic of Davis, California, which is about 10, 15 miles away from Sacramento, the belly of the beast in Fornicalia, he came to the UC Davis system and attempted to speak and was booed and sent away. Now, they did have a protest, and he could not speak. They didn't riot like Berkeley, but he's in California. Now you understand why he goes to colleges. He's attempting to see if he can actually speak to these people.
The level of...
And then a wave afterwards.
Right. The level of intellectual diversity in that generation is very much not what you would think if all you ever read was BuzzFeed.
In the statistics that you're saying is less. College campuses are among the safest places for women to be. And people who peddle the lies are like 1 in 3, 1 in 4 want to tell women they're the most dangerous places you can be. It's a lie. In what possible universe is that responsible or caring behaviour? That's not the behaviour of somebody with integrity. That's the behaviour of somebody with a political agenda who cares nothing for the facts.
Is there anybody in here who hates me? Anyone? Yes, there we go. Thank you. I'm afraid. This is an event for 7s and above, so anyone who just put their hand up, please leave.
And that's why he goes to college appearances and makes college appearances. See, it becomes really difficult to assail a gay Greek British young man who thinks on his feet as fast as this guy does, and who is more than an intellectual match for any snowflake or any gingerbread person who comes to the front of the stage or has the guts to come to a microphone and actually attempt to present any kind of an argument to Milo. And now that you've heard him, if you haven't heard him before, you know this is Milo, this is what he consistently says, and this is why he must be absolutely demolished. Leftists can't abide the truth. They can't abide dissent. They can't abide views opposite their own because they are unequipped to deal with cogent arguments, the likes of which Milo Yiannopoulos makes. And they are predicated but on what I call my 6 theories. And that is facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, and common sense. Because you can't let any one of those facets get involved of a good fucked up decision. So the once valued bastion of free speech, Berkeley, California, which is essentially where it came from, has now been confirmed as the center of oppressed speech. Okay, I think I've bashed this into the bottom enough. I'll tell you what, when we come back, I'm going to tell you a story about SFPD, and then we're going to go into Trump's immigration stay. So please, if you would, come right back, and we will be, in fact, right back after this. Thank you.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying capitalist, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplains.dailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
And welcome back. Thank you for following me. Thank you for being loyal listeners, people live here in chat. If you're not in chat, if you just happen to be coming by, sign up, go into chat, and interact with everybody. I very much enjoy it. For the people that have been standing with me all week on Tuesday, also yesterday on Sackheads, and then tonight on the First Thursday show, I appreciate your loyalty. Thank you ever, ever so much, and I sincerely mean it for hanging around with me, especially after Tuesday's funny little event when the laptop decided that it was going to crash. That was all sorts of good, clean fun. Now, from Brightbot.com, let me tell you about this. It's no secret that I was in law enforcement for 41 years. That's a damn long time. That's about twice average what most cops put in. They put in 20 and they're gone. They go do something else. They become construction, whatever the hell. They go someplace, or frequently they become injured and then they have to retire, etc. So I predicate that by saying I support law enforcement. Obviously, and I've been doing it for a long time. I've worked for the feds, and I've worked for local agencies. I retired from an agency after 35 years there as a supervisor in a sheriff's department, California. Sacramento, as a matter of fact. I may as well tell you, the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. If you go on to my Twitter page and you dig down in photos far enough, you'll find a photo of me standing in front of one of our cop cars we had. So I'm a supporter of law enforcement as much as I possibly can be. But when they're stupid and they fuck up, I call them on it. I called San Jose PD on it when they wouldn't support or make arrests during the Trump protest that was there. I looked at the videos and I looked at the photos. They were there in riot gear, just like UC Berkeley, and they didn't do much. And I looked at all the videos and all the photographs. Today I spent a good amount of time. And as I told you, one arrest. After you look at all those videos, can you give me any cogent reason as to why there was only one arrest made from all of those people? They were right there. And UCD police in riot gear were there. Someone, you cannot convince me otherwise, someone told these people to stand down. That's disgusting. UCD police, you should be ashamed of yourself. City of Berkeley PD, you should be ashamed of yourself. You dishonor your badge. You dishonor the state of California. You dishonor your law enforcement oath that you took when you graduated the academy and you got sworn in and you were handed your badge. You pussies. You disgust me. You serve no one but leftists. You don't deserve your damn paychecks. Men, women, it doesn't make any difference. You are absolutely reprehensible. I watched you watch what was going on. And you did nothing. And here's what happened. I wish I could prove it. And I'm saying this is my opinion. It's an O word. This is my opinion. I have no facts to say this, but I believe that orders were given down from the top of the UC system. Phone calls were made to the City of Berkeley Police Department, and an agreement was made to stand by as much as they possibly could until there was actual bloodshed. And even then, they didn't intervene. A man was knocked down unconscious in the street. That is unacceptable. It is absolutely disgusting. And unfortunately, I fear that's the trend. But as long as law enforcement continues on any kind of a track semi-resembling this, I'm going to call them out every damn day of the week. I put in twice the time that probably 99% of you arseholes did. I faced guns. I went on calls where normally today, you people would call a SWAT team. That's not what we did back then. When I first started, we had revolvers and speed loaders. Initially, we had dump pouches, no portable radios. You know the story. I'm not telling you anything you haven't already heard. So wait. That said, now, let's go to Breitbart.com. Because here's a headline for you, straight out of Fornicalia. Perfectly predictable. Rebel San Francisco PD cuts ties with FBI on counterterrorism. The San Francisco Police Department, SFPD, is ending its cooperation with FBI counterterrorism efforts as part of the city's larger rejection of President Donald Trump's executive order on immigration. On January 31st, Breitbart News reported that San Francisco Police Chief William Scott, Sheriff Vicki Hennessy, by the way, she was the sheriff that replaced the one that was involved directly with the Kate Steinle murder, who covered up information about her, and he was the one that gave the order that refused the notification to ICE that this guy was ready and needed to go back. Murakami was his name, and a commie he was. Well, that didn't sit well. The next time around, a year later after that event, he got kicked out. Now there's another sheriff in town, so to speak. And Mayor Ed Lee sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security informing them that city would not comply with the order. Not comply with the order. So now the SFPD has decided, in its infinite wisdom, that it's cutting ties with the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And I worked with those guys. They're called the JTTF. They're in every jurisdiction. They're sort of a central council, and you send a representative of your agency where you get up to speed on what's going on. Oh, stop right there. That makes me think. This is another reason that it's reprehensible for the UC system and the city of Berkeley to have done what they did, and that's to step back. Because they all talk to each other. I know they talk to each other. And we learn from others' mistakes. When Seattle had the riots up by the anarchists in 2009, 10, 11, something like that, then there were riots that were planned in the city of Sacramento. The city of Sacramento Police Department, the County of Sacramento Sheriff's Department worked together and aligned with Seattle. We learned from them and created strategies that stopped them from turning the city of Sacramento upside down. So I know you arseholes talk to each other. So you can't convince me that UC Berkeley didn't call up UC Davis and say, hey, what happened when Milo spoke recently, by the way? And then the chief or the liaison, whoever's designated, because there is in fact a designee to speak to all the other agencies when you coordinate in this fashion. And UC Berkeley knew full well that Milo was coming. Just a week or two before, they had information, and they knew full fucking well what happened at UC Davis when Milo came. So they had the information, they had the strategy, they had the tactics, they were in the head, their men and women were suited up, and someone from on high gave a phone call to the watch commander, who gave the phone call and the order to the lieutenant, and gave the phone call and the order to the sergeant to step down. Again, another reason why you guys you're beyond reprehensible. I almost can't think of a name for you. According to the San Francisco Chronicle, the JTTF was formed in 2007 when the police force entered into an agreement with the FBI that authorized intelligence gathering by San Francisco officers of people engaged in First Amendment activities such as religious services, protests, and political assemblies. Opponents of Trump's order. Oh, sit down, you're going to love this. Opponents of Trump's order, including the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, which has been declared a terrorist organization by the United Arab Emirates and was named by federal prosecutors as an unindicted co-conspirator in a Hamas funding operation. CAIR sent a letter to the San Francisco officials in January asking them to adhere to city and state rules when working with the federal government. So the San Francisco Chronicle, which is where Breitbart got the information, quoted CAIR attorney. I won't even pronounce her name. She's not worth mentioning. Under the new administration, there are a lot of unknowns and, in particular, a lot of threats towards communities that have historically been surveilled by organizations like the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. Do you see what they're saying? The FBI is essentially a terrorist organization, and they're worse than Hamas. They're worse than ISIS. So now SFPD has to back out of any cooperation whatsoever. This is a show that people can access, and there are lots of things that I would like to say right now. I'm going to hold back. I think you have a pretty good idea of what it is that I'm thinking. As I said earlier, I think Jersey Joe and I were chatting. And I was saying the cops are no better than anybody else anymore. They come from the same gene pool, where you get people like Black Lives Matter, for example. And I said to Jersey Joe, my best troops were those who already were familiar with sacrifice and courage. And they came from the military. And that's true. That was true in the 70s when I first started. The people, I'll be honest, I never served. I never served in the military. I may as well tell you this story. We're here right now. I never served in the military. I signed up for selective service. I signed up for selective service in the late 60s, and I expected fully well that I was going to go. And I thought, my dad wanted me to go in the Air Force because he was an Air Force guy. And by that time now, we were stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And I figured, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go. And the Army's going to pick me up, and probably I'm just going to have to shrug my shoulders and say, you're going to have to grit it out and do what needs to be done. Because selective service is going to call my number. And then I was never called. Then I got involved. I went to college. I got involved with the federal law enforcement side. I got involved in law enforcement, and the rest is history. I never found out until at least 3 decades later by a former girlfriend that I happened to meet when you go back to your high school kind of thing on a digital platform, digital forum. All the selective service records were kept in Chillicothe, Ohio. Chillicothe, Ohio, one particular year, had a tornado that ripped the entire town apart. All the records, back then, they were all paper, all went away. And that's the reason that I was never called. So law enforcement gets its same, the gene pool is the same for everyone. So when you're saying that, your millennials are being employed here, they're being employed there, well, that's very true. That's very true. All right. I'm done going 210 over 190 on that issue. But I am going to go 210 over 190 and go into some details that I think lots of people failed to mention, and I'm going to mention them all at once. This is the information that I didn't have the opportunity to present on Tuesday, and I really would have liked to have presented it last week, but for whatever reason, I just didn't get the time. And it's about Trump's immigration halt, his stay, and it's in place. And now in retrospect, yes, they could have done things a lot better. It should have been addressed. The issue should have been taken care of with regard to people. What the hell? Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. The cat that was in the studio just wound around my feet and around my legs. Okay. All right. Jesus Christ, cat. Okay. I'm better now. Anyway, there's a U.S. code, and I am going to get into details here, and I may run, well, at this point, it looks like I am going to run over the top of the hour. So, Mary Brockman, you may get your chance, because I am going to run over at least 9 o'clock here, 1 o'clock there. No, noon, midnight, rather. There's a particular U.S. code, and you can go look it. You can Google it and find out. And it's called 8 U.S.C., subsection 1182. And it's titled Inadmissible Aliens. Section F. Suspension or entry or imposition of restrictions by the president. Whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restriction he may deem to be appropriate. That's right there in the USC, in the United States Code. Yeah, you're right. I should name the cat Ollie. By the way, speaking of Ollie the Bobcat, I sent a check to Ollie the Bobcat in D.C. because Ollie the Bobcat earlier this week escaped the National Zoo in D.C. I sent a check to him, and I said, get on United Flight 551, and it's an express flight from D.C. to Sacramento at SMF, and you'll become the cat, the Bobcat, because it's the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. And so I'm going to have to name this cat Ollie. I sent out a tweet so you can see what Ollie looks like. Ollie was on the desk here for a while. Boy, I'm easily disrupted. So, President Trump is in fact following through with any number of his campaign promises. That drives people crazy. He's doing what he said. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to react. It's rather incredible. So,
Extreme vetting is how President Trump characterizes his ban on certain refugees, along with all visitors from 7 predominantly Muslim countries from coming into the U.S. Trump's pronouncement coming during his first visit to the Pentagon as commander-in-chief.
To keep radical Islamic terrorists out of the United States of America. We don't want them here.
The order stops people from Iraq, Syria, Iran, Sudan, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen from entering the United States for 90 days. It also suspends the U.S. refugee admissions program for about 4 months until members of Trump's cabinet believe the person is properly vetted.
We want to ensure that we are not admitting into our country the very threats our soldiers are fighting overseas.
The president told the Christian Broadcasting Network Christians will be given priority.
If you were a Christian in Syria, it was impossible, at least very tough to get into the United States. If you were a Muslim, you could come in.
That's absolutely true. There was an instance on the southern border of Mexico where Obama specifically intervened. There were Christians from Syria who wanted to come in from Mexico. Obama, from the White House, stopped them from coming in. Specifically, not Muslims, Christians.
I thought it was very unfair. So we are going to help them.
Critics say the order hurts more than it helps.
We are going to need Muslim allies more than anybody else if we're going to be successful in this fight.
Well, north of the border, most people not impressed with Trump's latest moves.
I don't really understand what the purpose of that is. As knowing that America is basically a country that is built by immigrants.
Others fear the long-term effects of the executive order.
It's so detrimental even past the 4 years. Even when, let's say he doesn't get reelected, which I hope he never does, the damage that he will cause in the 4 years, it can even be repaired.
But not everyone thinks the bans are a bad thing. Is that the right way to go?
Sure. I think if he thinks it's the right thing for them, they should just solve the problems that are currently in the U.S. and maybe then move on.
With Canadian and U.S. national security so intertwined, could we be forced to consider something like this? Many are hoping not.
We should stay out of this. It's not our problem.
Is it possible, though?
Yeah. Look around, everyone's multicultural out here,
Now, on a related note, Trump did say he spoke to Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto by phone a day after Peña Nieto canceled their face-to-face meeting because of Trump's confirmation of his border wall plans and getting Mexico to pay for it. Now, Trump described it as a very good call.
So following a recent judge's ruling, then there was another judge's ruling on that. Homeland Security came out with an edict, and it said President Trump's executive orders remain in place. Prohibited travel will remain prohibited, and the U.S. government retains its right to revoke visas at any time if required for national security or public safety. That's exactly what Section 1182 said. So the judge's ruling said this. The judge's stay only says that anyone who has already landed in the U.S. and has a valid visa cannot be put on a flight back to wherever they flew in from. The judge's stay does not halt the entire immigration ban from Syria or the 7 named countries listed in the executive order. U.S. immigration at foreign airports will still not board anyone from the named terror countries. The U.S. absolutely has a right to control who enters our border and our country, but entering the U.S. is not an absolute right of foreigners. This is our country, our flag. We have an investment in this country of making sure that it prospers. We get to decide who comes in and who does not. It is a privilege to be in this nation. It's not a right. It's no one's right. Speaking of Section 1182, there's another one that I listed in my, later on if you're interested, go to that particular post. Check Fialo versus Bell, 430 U.S. 787. So then the American media maggots had to weigh in on the thing, of course.
We'll begin with our top story this morning, President Trump's first week in office, and it was jam-packed with presidential actions. Mr. Trump signed 15 executive orders and actions, the most controversial.
Stop. Dave, thank you. I'm reading chat. I've actually got 4 screens up going right now, and I've got my new microphone working because I can actually make some of this shite work. So I'm reading chat. I'm looking at chat. Dave Milner just said, Mark, while we're at it, let's get Trump to reinstate that new citizens have to take the whole oath again. Have I got some information for you? In the state of California, I just learned tonight that people who are employed by the state of California, anybody that comes in this particular agency at this point that I'm not going to mention, because, quite frankly, they're not worth mentioning. But there was an individual who, oddly enough, was a millennial. And when you come in, you have to swear an oath to protect and defend the United States. Get this. A part-time individual, not a full-time individual, a part-time individual for the state of California refused to take the oath. They didn't hire him. It went back to a board. The board said they're going to give him a waiver so he does not have to make that oath. That is your current state of California right now. Thank you for reminding me, Dave. And that just set precedent. So if you don't have to take an oath, why should anyone have to take an oath? Is this not... It is disgusting. Thank you for reminding me of that, Dave. Again, I have no words.
Signed last night, the order suspends all refugees from entering the U.S. while the administration tightens the screening process for refugees, especially those from Muslim countries.
The aim is to limit the rise of Islamic extremism, but the order is causing widespread outrage from humanitarian organizations to Democratic members of Congress. Minority Leader Senator Chuck Schumer tweeted last night, "There are tears running down the cheeks of the Statue of Liberty tonight."
Yeah, I bet they are. Hey, Chucky Schumer, little Chucky Schumer, we're going to get into what you did not long ago with regard to that. You lying, hypocritical sack of shite.
Errol Barnett is in our Washington bureau with more on this story. Errol, good morning.
Good morning. In response to President Trump's latest executive action, the UN Refugee Agency and International Organization for Migration issued a joint statement calling for equal treatment of immigrants regardless of nationality. While Mr. Trump's move may be alarming to many, he is fulfilling a key campaign promise.
3, 2,
In his first visit to the Pentagon as Commander-in-Chief, President Trump announced and signed 2 executive actions.
We want to ensure that we are not admitting into our country the very threats our soldiers are fighting overseas.
Stop. Tell you what, folks, hold that. It's the top of the hour. We're going to break, and then We'll be right back. Again, thanks for hanging on. This is the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It is, in fact, the aftermath. We're going to roll over to a second hour.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant flying guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying capitalist.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sako as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplains.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Doing the job the American media maggots won't. Fundamentally changing America, one diaper at a time. Here is, courtesy of the SHR Media Network, the Bloviating Zeppelin.
Boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for sticking with me on Tuesday. Thanks for listening to the Sackheads Radio on Wednesday. I was on Jeff Dunnett's program, and I laughed a lot. Thank goodness Jeff did not crack a joke while I was drinking a Rockstar at the time, or carbonated water, sparkling carbonated water, would have jetted through my nose and onto my computer screen. Again, thanks. We return, and let's listen.
One action will suspend immigration from specific countries to prevent the entrance of Islamic terrorists and implement what he calls extreme vetting of immigrants.
I'm establishing new vetting measures to keep radical Islamic terrorists out of the United States of America. We don't want them here.
The order puts a 120-day hold on all refugees settling in the U.S., a 90-day halt on entry of visitors from countries of concern like Iraq and Syria, and blocks all Syrian refugees indefinitely. In a television interview, President Trump said he'll prioritize, quote, persecuted Christians.
They've been horribly treated. Do you know, if you were a Christian in Syria, it was impossible, very, very tough to get into the United States.
Can you imagine any prior president saying that, especially our prior president, our capitalist, our Quisling, our Neville Chamberlain president? Can you imagine him saying anything about Christians like this at all? I cannot.
If you were a Muslim, you could come in.
Well, thank you, Mr. President.
Earlier at the White House, President Trump hosted his first foreign leader, British Prime Minister Theresa May.
I think the Prime Minister, first of all, has other things that she's much more worried about than Mexico and the United States relationship.
In a joint press conference, Mr. Trump was asked about his hour-long phone call with Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto.
It was a very, very friendly call.
The two have been publicly feuding over who will pay for the proposed wall along the U.S.-Mexico border.
We are going to renegotiate our trade deals, and we're going to renegotiate other aspects of our relationship with Mexico. And in the end, I think it'll be good for both countries.
The president was also asked about his apparent desire to develop a close relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Putin and Russia, I don't say good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know the gentleman. I hope we have a fantastic relationship.
Pressed about keeping in place sanctions against Russia, Mr. Trump said he hasn't decided yet.
As far as the sanctions, very early to be talking about that. But we look to have a great relationship with all countries, ideally. That won't necessarily happen.
Now, later today, President Trump will have a phone call with President Putin for the first time since election night. He will also speak with leaders from Japan, Germany, France, and Australia before signing more executive orders, the content of which is still unknown.
Funny. Leftists, anarchists, demo-rats, as I refer to them, and the American media maggots all conveniently forgot, and this is why I'm doing the show on this, though it's not a brand new crisp issue, but it's still in the back of my wheelhouse in my brain housing group. That's why I'm doing it now, because the devil is always in the details, and people, specifically the American media maggots, purposely forget to tell you certain things, and the Democrats certainly won't remind you of them. They forgot that Barack Obama himself banned all Iraqi refugees from entering the United States in 2011. But apparently for them, that's no issue. That's no problem. From ABC News, I found this quote. As a result of the Kentucky case, the State Department stopped processing Iraqi refugees for 6 months in 2011, federal officials told ABC News. Even for many who had heroically helped U.S. forces as interpreters and intelligence assets. Stop. Did you not hear that same excuse given for Trump? Trump is so horrible, he's so repressive, that there were good interpreters who want to come into this nation, and we're not letting them in. Obama did the same damn thing and was never called on it. Never. One Iraqi who'd aided American troops was assassinated before his refugee application could be processed. Obama's responsible for that death. ABC News is telling you right there. Because of the immigration delays, 2 U.S. officials said in 2011, fewer than 10,000 Iraqis were resettled as refugees in the U.S., half the number from the year before, State Department statistics show. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth has meaning. Details have meaning. That's why I'm here tonight, to immure this on record, so that I remind you and myself of what actually occurred. Plus, from the WashingtonExaminer.com, President Obama has barred huge groups of potentially dangerous immigrants. Washington Examiner said potentially dangerous immigrants from entering the United States at least 6 times, undercutting his claim that barring Muslims from terrorist countries, as Donald Trump has proposed, is un-American. Washington Examiner, thank you for writing that. That is the truth. In his first ban, according to a search of White House records, Obama instituted a ban on immigrants or non-immigrants covered by a large United Nations travel ban. He also included those on an economic sanction list. Most countries were Muslim. What a shock. He cited the very same section of law that many critics of his policies have asked him to use, Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. It says, whenever the president finds that the entry of aliens or any class of aliens, blah, 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 it's the same stuff that I just read at the beginning of the show. He used that same provision 5 other times, one more in 2011, twice in 2012, and twice in 2014. In those, he targeted people aiding Iran, Syria, Crimea, and those involved in war crimes. Still, in his latest tirade against Trump's call for a ban on Muslims from terror nations, Obama said such bans violate the American way. They violate the American way. Bullshit. It's in the law. I call bullshit on that, Obama. In reaction to the Orlando terror attack, Trump said, when I'm elected, I will suspend immigration from areas of the world where there is a proven history of terrorism against the United States, Europe, or our allies, until we fully understand how to end these threats. So Obama ripped him. He ripped Trump. He said, that's not the America we want. It doesn't reflect our democratic ideals. It will make us less safe. Again, bullshit. Islamists don't need any further reason to want to kill Westerners other than we don't believe as they do. So that we're giving them additional fodder and ammunition to kill them, to kill us, to kill Westerners, to kill the infidels and the kafir. They don't need that. That's already their mindset. That's already in their wheelhouse. It will make us less safe. What a load of shit. White House documents also show that former President Bill Clinton issued 6 immigrant bans, George Bush 6 immigrant bans, and former President Ronald Reagan 4. In 1980, I had to dig to find this, but it's there. In 1980, former President Jimmy Carter banned Iranians after Tehran seized the U.S. Embassy. My God, Jimmy Carter did something right. So, how about a list, because I believe in detail and digging it all up. Below, what I'm going to quote, I found are Obama's actions. Again, it's all in the details, which is why the so-called real news is fake news. They are fake news. July 25th, 2011, Obama barred those under a UN travel ban or broke 29 executive orders covering transactions with terrorists. August 4th, 2012, Obama banned anybody involved in war crimes or just about any other crime involving human rights violations. April 23rd, 2012, Obama barred those helping Syria or Iran or involved in human rights abuses for those governments. May 1st, 2012, Obama made another block on those helping Iran and Syria. April 3rd, 2014, Obama banned anyone known to threaten South Sudan. March 6, 2014, barred entry of those claiming government authority in the Crimea region of Ukraine, presumably on behalf of Moscow. Read this. Listen to this. Those 7 enumerated countries referred to by Trump are the same countries previously identified by Barack Hussein Obama as problematic in nature for the United States of America. He didn't just draft this shite out of left field. He cribbed it from the biggest cribber himself and the former liar and divider-in-chief Barack Hussein Obama. Tom Cotton, who, quite frankly, is a hell of a senator, and I agree most of the time with what he said, had a great quote about this. He said, "It's simply wrong to call the president's executive order concerning immigration and refugees a religious test of any kind. I doubt many Arkansans or Americans more broadly object to taking a harder look at foreigners coming into our country from war-torn nations with known terror networks. I think they're wondering why we didn't do that earlier." So, let the battle of national sovereignty versus open borders officially commence. It's off. The gloves are off. Leftists, anarchists, they finally come out and they state, this is where, again, you clap the headphones on the little children who may be listening. They finally come out and state what they want. No borders, no nation, fuck deportation. Correct. Leftists want no borders, no actual nation called the United States. I thank them, at least this time, I thank you for being honest. At least they're honest. In the interest of keeping national sovereignty with an eye toward self-determination and self-interest, as well as national security, President Trump signed the executive order on Friday the 27th, which specifically banned Syrian refugees indefinitely and immigration from those 7 enumerated countries, which are Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Sudan, Libya, Iraq, and Iran. Those are the same countries sourced, referencing materials and incidents identified by the Obama administration. Again, shock of shocks. So subsequently, leftists, the Democrats, the anarchists, et al., the American media maggots, they're losing their friggin' minds. They're wetting their beds nightly. I call it PSH, pants shitting hysteria. Not that they were any particularly well assembled in the first place. So the usual suspects, you knew that the usual suspects in the EU, Angela Merkel and Francois Hollande, are and will be doing their level best to demolish and undermine Trump's decision. I suspect that they're shocked to find that they may be holding the Syrian refugee bag themselves. And rightly so. They were the ones who decided to accept the refugee hordes in the first damn place, going so far, Merkel, to ask for them. She solicited them. The true creator of the refugee problem is Barack Obama. Thinking about that, perhaps that's where their umbrage comes from. Yeah, okay, so here we go. The truth is, yeah, these countries are predominantly Muslim, but not for lack of trying by Christianity, but because Christians are simply killed outright. As it is that Islam that wishes to convert them, kill them, all the rest of the planet, and it's Islam directly linked to terror events aimed at the U.S., and other Western countries. The point at issue is the threat and the danger represented by these nations. That they happen to have Muslims in them is a link, but not the primary point. The primary point is, if Islam, let's say Islam was not involved, but they were all still as dangerous, the threat would still exist. If, let's say you changed the word Catholic to Muslim, for example, everything else being the same, I would still strongly support Trump's executive order, and I bet everyone listening to me and everybody in chat would do the same thing. Well, let's not forget that ISIS and Islam has told us time and again that its goal is to infiltrate westernized countries like those of the EU and the United States. Terror groups, they're upfront about it. They'll tell you what they want to do. They'll tell you when they want to kill you. So here's another brief breath of fresh air. Representative Devin Nunes in Tulare, California, the state of California. He's the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. A Democrat came out and said this: in light of attempts by jihadist groups to infiltrate fighters into refugee flows into the West, along with Europe's tragic experience coping with this problem, the Trump administration's executive order on refugees is a common-sense security measure to prevent terror attacks on the homeland. Duh. Do you think? And so here comes an additional chunk of irony when Fornicalia's newly minted little attorney general, Xavier Becerra, who has apparently been unconscious the past damn 8 years, said this: justice in America doesn't live or die on the stroke of one man's pen, regardless of how high his office. You daft piece of crap. If that isn't completely mentally obtuse, I don't know what is. So here's another interesting point, and I always go searching for this. Concern for our borders and who we allow into the country is not a new idea. Donald Trump doesn't just pull it out of his arse. How about we listen, just for a second, to the veritable God, the God of Democrats, William Jefferson Clinton, in 1994. All right, Bill, talk to me, dude. All right, Bill's not talking to me. He's not cooperating. So, Bill Clinton in 1994 decided that he was going to limit immigration. So, Obama banning Muslims, not just once. Oh, wait. Even though this video isn't playing, and I would love to have had you heard it. Let's not forget about Hillary Clinton and WikiLeaks, because WikiLeaks spilled the beans on her. That's what the Democrats are pissed about, not that about the WikiLeaks situation itself, but that their plans and plots were revealed. She admitted that Muslim refugees could not properly be vetted. She said, quote, "They can't possibly vet all those refugees, so they don't know if, jihadists are coming in along with legitimate refugees." For once, Hillary Clinton told the truth. Okay. Now, what about Jim Comey?
Concerns in Syria is that we don't have the systems in place on the ground to collect the information to vet. That would be the concern. Databases don't hold the information on these individuals. Is that still the position of the department?
Yes, I think that's the challenge we're all talking about, is that we can only query against that which we have collected. And so if someone has never made a ripple in the pond in Syria in a way that would get their identity or their interests reflected in our database, we can query our database till the cows come home, but we're not going to, there'll be nothing show up because we have no record on that person. That's what Assistant Director Steinbach was talking about. You can only query what you've collected. And with respect to Iraqi refugees, we had far more in our databases because of our country's work there for a decade. This is a different situation.
Well, yes, it is a different situation. Hey, Bill, are you back, sir?
Not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring
deporting twice as many illegal aliens as before. He actually said the two words together in a sentence. They were connected: illegal and alien.
Welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the Commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
So why was Bill Clinton right in 1994 and Donald Trump is absolutely incorrect and to be excoriated in 2017? Why is that? So we can applaud Bill Clinton in 1994, and we can want to kick Trump to the curb, and we can riot about it in Berkeley, California, just last night. So, a question for leftists, all right? If Islam has nothing to do with terrorism, as you claim, why would a ban on immigrants from dangerous Muslim countries promote recruitment for ISIS and provoke terror attacks? Answer that question. Another important question for you leftists out there and you anarchists and the American media maggots and you Democrats and anybody of that ilk. Why do Muslim refugees flee to Christian and Western countries and not to their fellow Muslim countries? Why is that? Hey, how about we have a Muslim answer that, shall we?
Hi, I just say regarding the people being imported in the airport.
Yes.
And I don't really agree because they're civilian. They're just running away from crisis. They try to get safe a place to get a better life, to improve their life. If the United States refused, if Trump said, I'm not happy to allow the immigrants in my country,
yes,
or not helping them, at least, okay, ban the citizenship. Don't allow them to have the citizenship. Let them live along the society. Let them live their life, but with their own nationality, with their own Syrian nationality. As soon as the country is safe, they can go back.
Okay, Aman, can I ask you a question? Or Ayman? Is it Ayman? I apologise.
Ayman, yeah.
I apologise. Let me ask you a question directly, and please don't take offence at the question. Why is it, help me understand, always help me, why is it we see Muslims running from Muslim countries to Christian countries for a better life? Does that not tell us something about Muslims, the religion of Islam? Why is it always Christian countries that need to save Muslim countries? Help me understand.
Listen to this answer. Listen, please.
It's at the moment, Muslim himself, there is issue inside Islam. There's issues between Sunni and Shia. There's so many issues that digs deep to a civil war. Islam. At the moment, Islam is not in the perfect shape, to be honest.
No.
Because of the division that we have.
Islam is not in a perfect shape. What can you say about that?
The division. Some of them, they say, you follow the West. Some of them, they say, no, you follow Islamic State. So there's so much division over there that causes us to go to civil war.
But Ayman, if Islam is not in a perfect shape, which I respect your honesty, and there's divisions between Sunni and Shia and others, why then would America want to import those divisions? Why should America want those divisions on its shores? Why is it always Christian countries that need to import problems to solve them, when in fact if I tried to go over to a Muslim country, I would be seen as less and required to dress a certain way and have all the problems, the divisions put upon me if I went to a Muslim country, but somehow Christian countries are supposed to open their arms, open their borders and solve the problems of Islam. I'm really conflicted by trying to understand that.
I do understand your point as well, but at the same time, I feel for the people who live in there a bit. This is if the Western was in the same situation and the Middle East was in upper hand where the United States, I expected the same from that side as well to get help. But at the moment, the Western in the better shape that the Middle East needed more help. Because
I know, but I almost feel, Eamon, I can't help but be really honest with you. I feel like the Western world is in a better shape because we have Christian religions which seem to be less oppressive in some regards, especially with those who are more extreme in the way they practice them. And I can't help but wonder why Muslims who come over here escaping the problems they have living under their religion don't leave that religion behind as well.
Folks, it's the bottom of the hour. We'll be right back after this break. Again, thank you so kindly for listening. A few more minutes, we'll be back. I have absolutely got to use the Mach 1 Model 1 restroom. Sorry.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Millman. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men who emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying capitalist.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sako as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com and HighPlainsDailyNews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with me on my new microphone. It's a Shure 55S, the classic 75-year edition. It's a beautiful machine. I'm going to be listening to this back again another hour to see if I can determine a difference in this. I'm not sure I can. I'm curious if you can. Hey, let's continue with this particular cut.
I don't know why it is that when we have done a survey over in the UK about a Muslim religion, Muslims say they don't want to integrate with Western society. They don't really want to integrate. They want to preserve the Muslim tradition, Islamic traditions. I struggle with that, of course, because that's something many of them were escaping, that division. So that's why I don't see why it's in Americans' interest to bring the divisions of Islam, to bring the divided religion that is Islam into the USA.
See, the deal is leftists and those who wish to do harm to the United States are up in arms over Trump's presidential EO, his common sense EO. They can't believe that, number one, he means to put America's interests first, which is a concept so many of these shotheads can't grasp. And two, he's doing exactly what he said he would. So, leftists, Democrats, anarchists, American media maggots, they don't want you to understand that immigration to the United States was, listen to this, did you realize immigration to the United States was essentially halted in between 1924 and 1965 via the Immigration Act of 1924. That was also called the Johnson-Reed Act. The act provided immigration visas to 2% of the total number of people in each nationality in the United States as of the 1890 national census. It completely excluded immigrants from Asia. That was changed in the 60s by the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which opened up numbers of immigrants from Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Southern and Eastern Europe, if I'm not mistaken. Some people may disagree with this. I think Jeff Dunitz would disagree with this because I spoke to him recently. I respect him. I disagree. Islam is a global cancer that is little understood by the bulk of the planet. It means to, and it tells us every day in the clear, verbally and in writing, that it wants to convert infidels to Islam or kill them. It removes freedoms, it removes rights, it oppresses women and children, and continues to slaughter infidels, kafirs, and each other in horrendous ways. I have said for years, and I will continue to say for years, until Islam proves me wrong, I don't think they're going to do that. My phrase is, Islam is as Islam does. For me, it's a common sense axiom, and I don't need anything more than to understand that in terms of Islam. It's a common sense axiom that would be applicable to any and every religion acting, if they were to act, as does Islam, in terms of violence and death. Refugees in America, ladies and gentlemen, are already responsible for acts of terror in the U.S., 20 of them. For example, 20 are already responsible. And then there was this guy in Finland who happened to say this.
Especially to you, migrants and Muslims, I know you. I am not like most of the Finns. I lived in your country for 10 years. And I've seen how cruel, arrogant, and stupid you are. You have not created anything. You have not done anything. You have absolutely done nothing. You just a sick, cruel. You don't respect your women. You force them to be your slaves. You don't respect other religion. You don't respect the Christianity. I've seen it disappear for 10 years. I've seen you murdering the Christians. And if you don't like that's the truth, you are supposed to be tolerant according to your imams, but you're not tolerant. Have you seen a church in Saudi Arabia? Have you seen a Christian in Saudi Arabia who can have his faith? You want us to celebrate your holidays. Do you celebrate Christmas? Do you celebrate Easter? You are absolutely out of this world. You should not even exist. And you should be banned from any civilized society. But don't despair. One day we will kick you out, all of you, the young ones. You left your country, collapse. You did not even fight. You have no guts. You did not set to fight for your country, for your people, for your family, for your children. You just ran away. But be sure, one day, most of the Europe will rise against you. You tried before to conquer.
That was a brave man. That was an incredibly brave man. So I say, wake the hell up, America, because already in the United States, the majority of Muslims believe Sharia law should take precedent over our own laws. And 60%, majority of Muslims, 51%, in case you're curious what it was. 60% of young Muslims in the U.S. are more loyal to Islam than the United States. Again, listen, just listen.
Welcome back to Hannity. So in the wake of Dr. Benjamin Carson expressing concern about a Muslim becoming president of the United States, well, we decided to launch a special Hannity investigation to find out if American Muslims think that Sharia law should supersede the U.S. Constitution. Earlier today, we sent out Fox News contributor David Webb to an Islamic cultural center in New York City. Now watch this closely.
Your thoughts, should Sharia law supersede the U.S. Constitution?
No, but I think the Sharia law is made by God, by Allah, and the Constitution is made by people. So it's not the same.
Do you believe that Sharia law should be above the U.S. Constitution?
Yes. Sharia law is completely different than the United States Constitution. As a Muslim, you practice my Islamic law. As a Muslim, but United States Constitution, as a citizen, I have to respect the Constitution. Nothing to do with Sharia law. It's a Muslim country, Sharia law is allowed. Other country, no. You have to have a right Constitution.
Should any religious law supersede the U.S. Constitution at any time? Any denomination?
Maybe in the future.
The U.S. Constitution deserve all the people living in U.S. their rights, right? So Sharia law does not contradict with this. Sharia law just protect our dignified. We are like human being. Be respectful. To be respectful in the society.
So you think that the U.S. Constitution should be the law of the land in the U.S.?
Also helpful to protect our Sharia.
Should Sharia law be over the U.S. Constitution?
Yes. Every country have a different policy and different law, but I respect the law in any country I go.
Do you believe that the tenets of Sharia law should be over the U.S. Constitution?
No.
That U.S. Constitution, which is made by people, and the Sharia law is made by Allah, so that is all the way above. That has to be definitely in the land, not for the America, for the whole world would be above.
Are you listening to this? Are you listening? Are you getting it, America? Is it sinking in between your head? What these people think? Yes, I said these people, and what I mean is Muslims. I don't believe there is such a thing as a moderate Muslim. If I remember, I'll get to why in just a bit.
So that should be above the U.S. Constitution?
Yes.
Joining me now with Reaction, syndicated radio talk show host out of Boston, Howie Carr, the author of Demystifying Islam, Tackling the Tough Questions, the national spokesperson for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Haris Zafar, and Fox News contributor David Webb. You had a significant number, and by the way, this backs up a poll that came out last year that even a majority of Muslims in America think that Sharia should supersede the Constitution.
Yeah, and look...
Did you hear that? I didn't pull that out of my arse. That poll was already conducted. It was conducted in 2015, 2015. Most Muslims already in this country believe that Sharia law should be the supreme law of the land, not the Constitution, not the Bill of Rights. Wake the fuck up, America.
There was no problem getting these questions and answers from these folks. You saw a wide variety of them. We gave them a chance to answer. The problem, and I have this problem with anyone, anywhere who believes it, any religious belief supersedes the U.S. Constitution. We're a nation where the Constitution guarantees your religious freedom and where your religion does not trump it. Most people believe that in America. There are Muslims who want to live here and live under our Constitution, but too much, we find a growing number of them that believe Sharia should supersede the U.S. Constitution. And one there admit, look, in other countries, it's Sharia, but look at those countries where Sharia is the law.
Stop. Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy, just pointed out in chat that that he's starting to say that being cognizant of this should be a large priority for the Trump administration, informing the American public about the reality of Islam. Dave, I said it earlier. I think I said it Monday on Ken's show. I may have said it Tuesday. I don't think I said it yesterday on Sackheads because Sackheads doesn't really deal with Islam very much. I don't think they're much interested in it. I certainly am. I told you, I think, on Monday that Dr. Sebastian Gorka is now an assistant on Trump's staff. If you're not aware of who Dr. Sebastian Gorka is, go Google his name. That's a gentleman who's going to be advising. He's an assistant advisor to Donald Trump. He's in the White House now. I think the worm may be turning. That is one of the best things that I had heard in quite some time, to install Dr. Gorka on staff.
So far, while you are a minority in the Muslim community in many ways, and more liberal-minded in your views, generally speaking, we know the application of Sharia renders or relegates women and minorities and other religious faiths to second-class citizens. So that's just a fact when you look at the application of Sharia in Muslim countries. So if you have more than half of Muslims in America that want Sharia, they are basically saying they don't support the U.S. Constitution, where you have freedom of religion and freedom of expression.
Yeah, it's what surprises me. The reason this surprises me because the most fundamental principle in Islam on this subject is that the law of the land supersedes all other laws. So in the verses in the Quran that talk about government do not specify any religious involvement. They say put your trust in those that are in authority in your country, and it tells those people in authority to be just, not religious.
Okay,
as long
but wait
as
a
they're
minute.
just,
But the true application of Sharia in countries is women can't drive, women have to dress a certain way, they can't be seen in public with men that are not their relatives. In some cases, women need 4 male eyewitnesses for rape. Gays and lesbians are killed. Those that leave the faith are viewed as apostates. They are killed for such religious liberty. So the reality is, it is at odds with the U.S. Constitution. It's practical application. Howie Carr.
So what?
Well, yeah, Sean, obviously this is what Ben Carson was talking about when he said he couldn't advocate for electing a Muslim president. And this is just a very troubling fact of life in society. I mean, and the fact that the Democrats are attacking Ben Carson over saying this, I mean, this is a Sharia law. There's no gay marriage, for instance. Abortion, as you pointed out, is punishable by death. Blasphemy. You know, no one's talking about rounding up Muslims. Certainly not Ben Carson, like FDR did during World War II. But this is just a fundamentally Sharia law is at odds with the Bill of Rights.
Howie, I want you to expand on that, because fundamentally the Quran and Islam, I'm not talking about radical Islamists, the Quran and Islam are fundamentally at odds with the Constitution, isn't that?
Okay, I can't play the rest of this. I'm running out of time, and I still have much more time to go back up to 210 over 190. Hey, speaking of Islam, isn't it the DNC that wants to install Keith Ellison as chair, along with that white racist Susan Boynton Brown? And if you think that Keith Ellison isn't a Muslim, then you are completely unhinged and off your personal rocker.
Hey guys, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. My thoughts on President Trump's executive orders on refugees. Mr. President, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for putting America and Americans first. This nonsense has to stop, sir. We have to get the refugees that are already here assimilated. The people already here attempted to open Sharia courts in Texas, and they want Sharia law implemented in Alabama, but thankfully the citizens were able to shut it down. But the thought of them even wanting to start it, it's scary. Look at what is happening in Europe. There are over 120 Sharia courts just in London alone. We don't need that here, Mr. President. And if these people are genuinely refugees, the Gulf nations would have accepted them. Not one Gulf nation accepted a refugee, not even a child. Why? Because these people are actually invaders, and the Gulf nations are part of this invasion. They want as many Muslims migrating to the West and eventually outbreed us and disrupt our culture.
Did you hear just what he said? It's what I've said for a long time and will continue to say, and I'm a terrible person for saying it. Listen up, America, again. Demography is prophecy.
And implement Sharia laws. This is part of the world domination. Thank you, Mr. President, for having the guts to even stand up to these people.
An interesting statement. So here's another truth that you didn't hear. The question comes down to this. Is the stay on immigrants an issue of threats posed, or is it a matter of Islam? Because here's what isn't happening that the American media maggots, the Democrats, anarchists, etc. aren't telling you. There is not a ban on individuals from Indonesia. Why is that important? Because Indonesia is the area which contains the greatest number of Muslims on the entire planet. 62% of Muslims are in Indonesia, much greater than the Middle East. Did you hear about that? No, of course you didn't. Further, 13% of the world's Muslims, or 199.4 million, out of up to 1.6 billion, live in those 7 countries. 13% of Muslims, according to a 2015 Pew Research Project report. Trump's EO only impacts 1 of every 8 Muslims worldwide, the bulk of which live in Indonesia, and probably, I'd say, 95% or more of Americans have no idea that that's the truth. As far as they're concerned, they all live in the Middle East. And that's a falsehood. That's blanketly false. 6 of the 7 countries to which the temporary visa issuance block applies were designated as state sponsors of terrorism or countries of concern by previous Democrat administrations, mostly Obama's, also Jimmy Carter's. Only one, Iran, in 1984, I think it was designated by a Republican administration. CARE, a Muslim terror-led tied group in the United States, is already doing its level best to instigate lawsuits and foment upheaval and chaos against President Trump, who's trying to do nothing more than protect all of us in the United States. Remember, this emphasis, once again, that the Democrats, the leftists, the anarchists, the American media maggots, and even a number of Republicans for fuck's sake, like John McCain and Lindsey Graham, have no interest whatsoever in telling you the truth or revealing highly important information that you need to know. And they don't reference history. Oh, they don't place issues in context. Where were little Chucky Schumer's tears in 2015 and 2011 due to Obama's actions? Where were they? Well, it wasn't politically correct to do that because that was on behalf of a Democrat. And Trump, well, we don't know what he is except he's got a dead orange cat on the top of his head. Where were McCain and Graham's objections in those years because of Mr. Obama's declarations? I didn't hear them. Did you? Did any of you happen to hear that? It's all part of what I say again. One of my conventions. Never let facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, or common sense get in the way of a good, emotive, and fucked up decision. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the persons who are complaining about illegals who don't belong in this country had as much concern about the quality, say, of medical service provided to our veterans, the plight of our homeless veterans, taking care of our own mentally challenged people, and our poor people first. And then, of course, there was the recent shooting at a mosque in Quebec City, Canada, where 6 persons were killed. So, in steps what I call BZ's terror axiom. The longer authorities conceal the nature of actors in terror incidents, the more likely they are Muslims. You know, one of the suspects there was clearly heard to yell Allahu Akbar as they shot people. That's called a clue. Ladies and gentlemen, I had to cut some things off. I had to cut some things short. It's about time to wrap up. Thank you again for listening. Ladies and gentlemen, keep your eyes open. Be cognizant. I'm sure many other people think I'm a tinfoil hat wearer. I will continue to provide all the information that I possibly can about Islam and why importing the purposeful importation of more Muslims into America is just plain flat wrong. Islam cannot get along with itself. Me against my brother. Me and my brother against my cousin. Me and my cousin and my brother against the tribe. Me and my cousin and my brother and the tribe against the outsider. That's how it goes. Wake the hell up, America. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Ballroom on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at bzepp and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility. They can be found at reverbnation.com. Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Thanks by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, which I will be accessing at the end of this broadcast. Trust me. Tune in to Sackheads Radio this coming Wednesday night. Don't forget, I'm on next Tuesday night. Thank you for listening. Yeah, don't think I'm not having vodka in about an hour or so. Thanks.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.